This river, what we see here today, was a theatre for the offtake of cargo and humanity. The Calcutta port has a long chapter of passenger embarkation and disembarkation. And this was marked by the chapter on indenture that commenced here from around the year 1834. That is when the first ship sailed from somewhere here to Mauritius with a load of humanity. And that was the commencement of the long chapter of indenture, influx and efflux that started from here. The conditions of the sailing, the conditions of this long transport from here, as you asked, almost 120 days on a sailing ship was pretty oppressive. They were all crumpled up, there were hatches, decks, 2 or 3 layered decks, and the condition of the sanitary conditions were very poor. Before 1860, most of the immigration that took place, particularly to Jamaica, were from Bihar and Bengal. Also some from Assam, even from Bangladesh, because Calcutta was the approved port for immigration in this hinterland.
In the 1800s, India enjoyed several natural advantages. It was reportedly the second most populous country in the world and the 7th largest country by area. India at that time was a jewel in the crown of the British Empire, an outpost that ceded great value. Circumstances, however, would conspire to place India at the fierce heart of then global politics. British occupation translated into broad economic and infrastructural development for the country. Yet this advancement was not alloyed with general equity for the masses. Discontent waxed. It was uncertain times for many who called India home. The search was on for ways to provide a better future for themselves. Seeking opportunities, many were enticed with promises of wealth and a better life. They left various towns and villages in northern India for the coast of Calcutta, filled with undying hope of success in what was touted as the Promised Land.
The recruitment system started year ahead, and they collected people. They asked who wants to go. Some came willingly, and some were just fooled and they went to the depot.
They were checked medically and otherwise before they were found fit to be put on the ships.
In 1845, the SS Blundell set sail for the over 9,000 miles or over 15,000 kilometers long journey from India to the Caribbean. By their instrumentation, the navigation crew of the ship knew the course to chart. But for the hundreds of indentured passengers, this was a journey into the unknown, a journey faced with courage and purpose, held afloat by the promises of a new world in Jamaica, West Indies. When the first batch of indentured Indians landed safely in Old Harbor Bay, Jamaica, they had done so against all odds. They had made the crossing in an overcrowded ship, with limited food and supplies, beset by varying illnesses. They emerged from the SS Blundell unbowed, with hope in their hearts.
Indians arrived in the first ship, which is called SS Bundel, and it arrived on 9th May 1845. So the first shipment came with 261 people who landed in Jamaica, although they left 271 started from India, but 10 died in between. And when they came, they were sent to Clarendon and some to Westmoreland.
With indentureship came hard taskmasters and working conditions. There were two work options opened to the Indian indentured laborers on the sugar plantation. They could do a 9-hour workday or task work. In fact, children as young as 5 years old were expected to work alongside their parents.
In the contract, they were given the passage to return home, and the first year of returning was more because they didn't have the extended family, but by then they had extended family, and they were only giving the return fare to individual, so that made them to stay here. They didn't have enough money to go back.
The Indian indentured laborers were reportedly given one suit of clothing, agricultural tools, and cooking utensils. Their living conditions were poor. Multiple individuals or families were housed in each barrack, consisting of maximum 4 rooms.
My Aj's mother was kidnapped and came over, right? So she didn't come here freely. But they grew up on the plantation in St. Mary, right? The Iterborough plantation over in Another Bay area. The things were so hard. Right? They're working from sunrise to sunset. And they didn't have more than one room for ever. I think there were 3 boys from that indentureship family. So they were all living together. So they had to sleep. And when it's cold on the seas, and where they were, they would push themselves into one big crocus bag that they used to load the things in. And that's what they would sleep in, right? And she used to tell us that. But later on, they got very innovative, and what they did was to take the guinea grass and put it in the crocus bag and now make a mattress.
A total of 36,412 numbers which came to Jamaica between 1845 to 1915.
The religious beliefs and observances practiced by the indentured laborers that came to Jamaica were frowned on by the recruiting authorities. There are records indicating that regulations were in place that limited Indian religious and cultural practices.
90% were Hindus and 10% Muslims, and 3 individuals were Christians. So naturally Hindus were more prominent, and they would do their evening singing, devotional singing, and when festival come, they will do the way they have seen in India, although by time it was modified. So they knew that there is one God, but we can pray them in different forms. So they would, in Diwali, it was goddess of wealth. In other festival like Basant Panchami, it was goddess of knowledge. And for Shiv, there were Trinity, Vishnu, Mahesh, and Brahma. Brahma was the creator, Vishnu was the protector, and she was regenerating because people will die, and we believe in reincarnation. So people knew about it, and they would do the same practice. That at Shiv there was a festival, they will dance, and that is where the ganja was involved. They would take ganja, and because Shiv was supposed to be taking ganja.
A lot of parallels here. So the sadhus, they fought the dreadlock. They sort of denounce civilization because they want to be one with the God, and they just want to pray and be in that divine space. Now, another interesting thing is that according to the Hindu mythology, India's holiest river, River Ganges, which we call Ganga in Hindi, it originates from the locks of Shiva. So it is a holy river that is coming from the locks of Lord Shiva. And along the banks of the river, it's one of the most fertile lands in India, the plant ganja grows. Now, how ganja derives its name? It is a combination of two words. The ganja is Ganga and Jaya. Jaya in Hindi, in colloquial Hindi, means to be born out of. So it's a holy plant which is born out of the womb of Mother Goddess Ganges, who's flowing, and these holy men who sport the dreadlock, they smoke that plant in a chillum, and they say this is not a drug, but this is merely the connection between us mortal souls to the immortal, which is Shiva, who we pray to. So you see the lot of, and they are all vegetarians, so they would grow their own produce. They believe, and India has a very ancient system of Ayurveda, which is the medicine system that is derived from herbs. Ayur means herbs. Veda is the science of. I don't know if you know, moringa is indigenous to India. Moringa came from India. So you know all these plants which have such good and strong, potent medicinal values originated from India. They were brought here when the indentured laborers came in, and so it has evolved.
The Indians who came to Jamaica during the indentureship period did not arrive empty-handed. They brought with them thousands of years of deeply ingrained religious and cultural practices.
There are records of those that are going to Jamaica or the South American countries like Trinidad, Fiji, Suriname, Guadeloupe, the French immigration. All of them had come like one unit on the ships. There were songs being sung.
From 1845 going on, the plantations, in fact, we still have it in Golden Grove, St. Thomas, where on one side of the road you had the Indian barracks, and on the other side of the road you had the Afro-Jamaican barracks. And that was the setup in the plantation. And what the Indians used to do is at night they would congregate in circles, where the elders would be in the center, and they would be espousing Indian scriptures, they'd be singing, they'd be chanting, there'd be a lot of cultural activities, dancing, etc. The other Indian indentured laborers would be around them, and the youngsters likewise in that mix. And what people from that era describe is that outside of that ring were a lot of Afro-Jamaicans who would be looking in, hearing as to what was happening.
The immigrants held on to their beliefs. With countless generations of religious and other practices in their blood, they drew sustenance. Recitations from religious texts provided the indentured laborers with spiritual upliftment and brought meaning to their hardships.
There were very few who knew Urdu. This is Ramayana written in Urdu, and they brought with them a Ramayana in Urdu. This is Bhagavad Gita, another epic book, and this has been brought in around late 19th century. Then there is this book, which is Sur Sagar, again written in Hindi. Hindi was the language which most of them were speaking.
This is a Jamaican village scene, sometimes in 1890s, turn of the century. Picture obviously from the Institute of Jamaica. This is a reprint. But the important thing here is a typical sort of set of indentured laborers. But if you look at the person in the backdrop there, what you'll see is somebody who has locks. And this would be a holy man in the plantation who is sporting his locks. And the story about this is that these used to be called jatabis, or jata. Jata means locks. And the early Rastas used to call their locks as zatabi. And it was one of the direct links that of the Indian influence on Rastafari. But the wearing of locks by holy men is common even now in India, and was very much part of the indentured labor village culture at that time.
The colonial plantocracy reportedly moved to whitewash Indian culture. One way in which this manifested was the anglicizing of Indian names. According to the planter class, this was necessary as they found traditional Indian names difficult to pronounce. The colonials did not recognize Indian marriages as legal, and children born of such unions were deemed illegitimate. Thrust into a hybrid culture, the Indian immigrants adapted by forming new social interactions. This would further result in intercaste relationships and an assimilation of Afro-Jamaican culture. Food has long been a major intersection point for cultures to meet. The spices used and methods of preparation by the Indian indentured laborers sparked a culinary revolution on the island. This cultural infusion won the stomachs and senses of those exposed to it. Soon, there was a smorgasbord of dishes made with vegetables, natural spices including cumin, ginger, turmeric, and authentic Indian curry.
Curry coat, chicken curry, or roti, all these things, I think it's a huge influence on Jamaican society. I don't know which one is Indian food, which one is Jamaican food now. I think it just jerk chicken stands out. Otherwise, all other things seem to be completely, fused.
The local flora would also be buoyed by the arrival of the Indians. They introduced several plants and trees in Jamaica, including mango, tamarind, and jackfruit.
Bandana, as you know, is the national dress. Jamaica, Miss Lou always wore it. It's synonymous. Bandana is a cloth which is also, a lot of Jamaicans will know it as Madras. Now Madras, now is Chennai, is a port city in southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu, where ships left for different countries across the world where British took the Indian indentured laborers. So the Madras, the print, the bandana print is unique with its squarish shape, the check shape. The root word of bandana comes from Hindi, which is bandhna. Bandhna means to tie.
The local folk music that came up in a big way, like in Jamaica, the Bhojpuri music that came, it reeks with this sadness. This reeks with this kind of lament that why did my beloved go from here? There are these 3 or 4 lines from, I remember, from Brijlal's book, the noted historian who had written on Jamaican and Trinidadian exodus. The lines go like this: the rail is not my enemy, neither is the ship. Money is my enemy, for it takes my beloved from place to place.
The Indian indentureship program would eventually be abolished in 1917. Its lifespan was shortened by several factors, including malpractices and ill treatment of the laborers by the planter class, and extreme political pressure due to growing Indian nationalism. The leader of the Indian freedom movement, Mahatma Gandhi, saw firsthand the plight of the indentured laborers.
He was one of the votaries against the perpetuation of immigration. When immigration was abolished finally in 1917, and there was a Trinidadian clamor to continue with immigration. It is Gandhiji who said, "I shall go on a hunger strike if you continue with immigration."
They left the plantations to work for themselves.
They knew the art of cultivation. As you know, they came for sugarcane, but later on they started rice cultivation in Westmoreland. And they were very good farmers. Majority were the farmers. And when indentureship finished, some were given in lieu of return passage a land. So in that land, they started cultivation, and that was their profession. And those who were artisan, they took that like potters. They would make lot of things for people's need to keep water. And some were cobblers. They would sit on the street or open a small shed and repair the shoes. Some were tailors. Everybody picked up their particular interest and where they were good at it.
Jewelry and adornments are reflective of social status. The traditional handcrafted Indian jewelry were heavy and intricate in design. They included beaded Indian fringe necklaces, a variety of bangles, elaborate earrings, and jewelry made for the feet.
After indentureship, and probably a bit before that too, the only sport that the Indians really had an impact in Jamaica in was horse racing and cricket. The sport of kings, which is racing, and the sport for kings, which is cricket, is where the Indians had an impact, both in playing and administratively as well. Way back in the 1930s, there were teams, and in fact there was an all-Indian team that played in Jamaican competitions for quite a while. Of late, people like Mr. Wilford Billy Heaven, the current president of Jamaica Cricket Association, is an Indo-Jamaican from Westmoreland. Yours truly also joined him on the West Indies Cricket Board. And there have been many other persons of Indian origin who've helped administratively in Jamaica cricket. I remember in the 70s we had a young bowler named Samuel Francis from Westmoreland, who might have been the first of Indian origin to play. And of late, we have a lot of youngsters playing at the youth level, now transitioning into first-class cricket and one-day cricket of Indian origin. They would be descendants of not just indentured laborers, but Indians who came thereafter. As we move along, in 2007 we had the World Cup of Cricket in the Caribbean, and as you can see, Sabina Park was refurbished. But what we didn't do was to put up lights at that time. Inexplicable, but Jamaica and Barbados did not put up lights. Modern cricket is played under lights as much as it's played in the days. You've now even got night test matches. And so there was a dilemma because it was hard to get lights. And it was only about maybe 8 years ago or so that the Jamaica Cricket Association approached the government of India via the government of Jamaica. And the government of India donated the lights to Sabina Park.
The composition of Indian immigrants to Jamaica evolved from indentured laborers in the late 1800s to business people in the 1950s.
They would bring all the things for the people's need, cameras, watches and all. And they flourished very well. They were the people who made money. Then in 1980s, the professionals started coming from India. When I came, there were influx of Indian doctors and Indian teachers.
People who started coming in, say, in the last 30 or 35 years are people from the fields of management, doctors, a lot of finance professionals, IT professionals. In the last 15 years, a lot of IT professionals also have moved to Jamaica. So I think essentially that's a big difference. It's not out of circumstances, it was more out of choice. The strong point that we see here as professionals is the work-life balance that Jamaica offers us as professionals. I don't think many other countries have that advantage, especially the very competitive economies, especially say like India, or even for that matter US. Life is, for professionals, is extremely demanding, extremely, challenging. So I think Jamaica has that beautiful balance of work life which most professionals are looking for, especially the younger professionals who are just beginning their families and lives. And I think it provides us that time with our families, time with our children. So that is a big plus.
Now the third largest ethnic group on the island, Jamaicans of Indian descent have stamped their mark on the economic, political and cultural fabric of the island.
I'm a part of an organization called the Indian Cultural Society in Jamaica. Though we know a lot about our culture because we go back frequently, we have families who keep visiting us very frequently. We have the whole social media, we have the internet advantage. However, still the experience, of being in that culture, experiencing that culture firsthand is something we still try to recreate here. It's less of information now, but it's more the experiential kind of things that we keep doing. So we do celebrate a lot of festivals. We have, cuisines from different regions of India, the authentic cuisines, like which you wouldn't get in a restaurant.
An important cultural tradition is living in unity and peace with family.
Is paramount to us, is fundamental to us. We see the Indian community, wherever they are, the families are very strong.
I was rich as a family because we share everything. We share the joys, we share the sorrows, and we share going to the bush to carry out the produce from my grandfather. And one pot for all of us. So we didn't know any distinction between cousins or aunts, right? And I grew up in a community where we were the only people, only family of Indian origin. And from then, I knew the motto, out of many, one people. My grandfather was a very devoted Hindu, and we had regular Hindu prayers at home where hundreds of people would turn up for a weekend. And the community of Preston Hill in St. Mary accepted that as a way of life.
Despite this practice of cultural preservation, miscegenation has occurred, and there has been a significant blending of Afro and Indian cultures. The unique hybrid culture, which has resulted in a cultural potpourri, can be seen in the celebration of a number of festivals and burial rites. Some have emerged as influencers in all fields of industry. One such area is that of medicine. They have improved the quality of health care while simultaneously reducing the cost. In fact, the image of the Indian doctor has emerged almost as a stereotype in Jamaica.
At one time in the mid-70s, the health sector, the doctors, 30% of the doctors in Jamaica were Indians. Not all of them from Jamaica. Many of them were from India, but the Indians made a tremendous contribution in the medical field. The inbound industry started by the Indians from India. The jewelry industry was one of the pioneer industry that the Indians started here in Jamaica. Barbering is something that Indians used to dominate many years ago.
Jamaican people have been overly burdened with diabetes and hypertension, which were the predisposing causes and the high-risk factors for our citizens to end up with a stroke or a heart attack. And that's where I ventured into pharmaceuticals. This is where we need to cut down the drug cost. When you cut down the drug cost, the quality of life will be better, the health care will be better. So once you have a healthy nation, the nation is going to be very productive so that we will have a better economy.
Today, they are providing a wide range of opportunities through the development of Jamaica's medical tourism industry.
Montego Bay is the right place. So this is where Purpose Group has acquired 65 acres of land near the airport. You need to sell to the global market. How far are you? We're right on the other side of the tarmac, right in front of the airport. So this is how you create an impact on the city, and therefore the region, therefore the country, and therefore the Caribbean region.
Jamaicans of Indian heritage have a natural business acumen that lends itself well to entrepreneurship. Indian-run small to medium-sized businesses are crucial to Jamaica's economy. Their presence is also felt at the highest echelons in facilitating economic growth, international trade, and tourism through Jamaica's Civil Aviation Authority.
I joined the Civil Aviation Authority in 1997, worked my way through the ranks, and was appointed Director General in 2015. So in 2019, I was elected as the President of the General Assembly for the International Civil Aviation Organization. ICAO is a specialized UN agency, and there are 193 contracting states that are part of the ICAO. Tourism is a huge industry for us. Our diaspora, our nationals, so it supports trade, it supports culture, it supports all these pillars of economic growth and development. And so a small island nation like ours, as are many in the Caribbean, aviation is a significant driver of economic activity. We are both the regulator and the air navigation service provider, so we have to ensure that we are meeting all our international standards, that there's confidence in travelers and airlines coming in and out of Jamaica. Safety, security, efficiency.
Beyond the world of business, the Indian influence is evident in other areas of the Jamaican society. To succeed both socially and economically, there is a need to develop a common culture and values. Jamaicans of Indian descent and origin are facilitating this success through education.
Education, the only stable avenue for upward mobility. Because once you're educated, and I'm not saying, I'm making a distinction between knowledge and education. Knowledge is a box of tools. Education is how you use these tools. And once you are educated, you cannot lose anything. You cannot go up and fall, because if you do your degree, that degree and that knowledge that you have will remain with you forever. And you can use that knowledge in an educated way to achieve success. In education, it's not so much the chemistry and the physics and the maths, but it's the life that is expected. Right? How do you use the knowledge in an educated way? And that is what I believe I was able to help in the transformation of those who pass through my halls.
They are among the highest ranking academic staff at universities across Jamaica, helping to shape the minds and values of generations to come. They've also made significant contributions in the fields of security and environmental awareness.
I'm Indian by birth, and as you know, I came here very early in life, and it was almost accidental because the Indian cricket teams and stuff were coming, so I tried to follow them. And of course, in those days, you know, we had pen friends. You remember pen friends? We write to each other, and so I had made a couple of pen friends here. And so I came and, well, decided I had to go back to start going to university. So I said, you know, rather than going back, I convinced my parents that I'll just stay here and go to school here because, you know, you're part of the Commonwealth, so education is quite similar. My father was in the army and the police, and under him, he had what you call the Canine Division. They were working dogs, you know, they used to work on crime detection and security and stuff. So of course by then I was very enthusiastic about it, and I had learned quite a bit just going there and participating in it. And I started breeding dogs and training dogs while I was still studying. We started 45 years ago. When I started Guardsman, you know, it was a 10-guard, 5-dog operation, and now we are 8,000 people. I think we were the pioneers in structuring the security industry at the time. Now we're into landscaping, we run the zoo, we're into pest control. So there are a lot of arms of the Guardsman Group that has nothing to do with security.
They are increasingly visible in the arts, as journalists and politicians. The collective medley of talent permeates from the grassroots to as high as the office of the Prime Minister of Jamaica.
After a fulfilling and rewarding career at PricewaterhouseCoopers, at the age of 50, I decided to retire from the firm. You know, I've been very fortunate, and I felt that it was time for me to start giving back. I wanted to do something to have more social impact. And so when I retired, to be honest with you, I had no clear plan about exactly what I was going to do. I started teaching at UWI, and you know, out of the blue, one day I got a call from our Prime Minister asking me to come and help at OPM. And obviously I was very honored to get that call, and so it's been 2 years since I've been serving at the Office of the Prime Minister as a senior advisor. Education, I think, is the solution to all our big problems, whether it's poverty, crime and violence, lack of economic growth. Solution lies in education. So I'm very passionate about trying to fix our education system and get more Jamaican children the type of education that I received. The second one is the environment. Environment and climate change is probably the defining challenge of our generation.
The blending of cultures at Ground Zero in Jamaica has also found expression at higher levels, leading to formal treaties of bilateral cooperation and assistance between Jamaica and India.
Indians across the globe have done very, very well, including, I would say, the people who run big technical giants like Google and Microsoft and Twitter are all of Indian origin. So I'm not really surprised about the Indian origin Jamaicans doing well in their country of origin. So I'm sure they have a reason to celebrate. And from my perspective as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, I would say these are my ambassadors, because they are doing for India what officially appointed ambassadors are doing, but unofficially they are the ones who you look at and you see what India and Indians stand for. So very, very proud of Indian diaspora doing their bit to the well-being of everyone and peace and global peace also.
Today, India and Jamaica retain close diplomatic ties.
We have a shared value system in terms of democracy. We are developing countries, and we have the similar kind of sensitivity and economic thinking. And I remember in 2019, it was a watershed year when Prime Minister Modi held the first India CARICOM region summit in New York. And beyond that, the Solar Alliance was joined by your country and the Caribbean. And CARICOM region also was given a grant of $14 million by India. In addition to this $14 million US dollar grant, there was another LOC was opened, which is a line of credit was opened, especially for green energy and solar energy and green tech developments, in which $150 million was granted for the region, which is close to, say, $10 million per country. Was the kind of assignment through line of credit which was opened. In addition to this, the Prime Minister Andrew Holness had a parallel summit and parallel conference on disaster resistant infrastructure, and this IRIS conference also happened alongside the COP26, and these are the kind of outlay of work which we as India and CARICOM countries are pursuing. So we have a common vision, and especially as vulnerable island states, the disaster resilience and management becomes very, very important aspect of living a peaceful life. So on those issues also we collaborate very, very well.
Our objective is to really build and strengthen the diplomatic relationship with India. We see and respect India for so many of its achievements, apart from the fact that India has bestowed upon the world science, mathematics, chess, so many things, Ayurveda, yoga. They are also critically important on the world stage at this moment. India has emerged as a leader in the fight for resilience. If you note, India has been very instrumental, particularly this Prime Minister Modi-led government, in the establishment of the CDRI, which is a Coalition for Disaster Resilience Institute. And then you also have, they're leading the way at the forefront of alternative energy. And they also are the headquarters for the International Solar Alliance.
Friendship is tested in times of hardship. The strong friendship between Jamaica and India was reinforced when India donated a shipment of 50,000 doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine to the island on March 8, 2021. This was the island's first batch of the vaccine to combat COVID-19.
We believe in a global family. We believe in our ancient wisdom, in our ancient tradition that the whole world is one family. So the pandemic is not going to go away if only India is coming out of that. But so we share our pharmaceutical products, the facilities that we have. And in March 2021, Jamaica was the first, in fact, the first country in this region to share our vaccine that have come up. We shared 50,000 doses. We don't forget our friendly countries, including Jamaica, because under South-South cooperation, we are developing countries, and we know that the people of Jamaica are important for us. You are close to our hearts. So we have to share this, or whatever good that we have, whatever little achievement that we have, we share it.
But on behalf of the government and people of Jamaica, we convey heartfelt gratitude and sincere appreciation to the government of India for this generous donation, even as they deal with their own challenges in respect of the pandemic.
I want to emphasize on the technology sector, that we are collaborating with the Ministry of Education. We have a huge potential in collaborating higher and tertiary education. Our IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, and National Institute of Technology in India are very strong, and the education and the quality of education they impart is at par with any other best institutions or universities in the world. But it seems that they are very less known in Jamaica. So my effort is to link up with these universities. The government of India has expressed interest in extending our IIT education outside of India.
The impact of Indians is going to be a lot more. With even the recent initiative, our Indian High Commissioner, His Excellency, Mr. Masuki said he wanted to build a scholarship exchange program by sending out Jamaican children to the Indian Institute of Technology, the premium institute in the world. Google CEO is from IIT, Indian Institute of Technology. CEO of Microsoft is from there. He wants to send our Jamaican graduates for postgrad studies to those institutions. This, as I said, this is just the beginning. Just let's watch and see how it will transform. And once again, we have to depend on our able leaders to bring that gap quickly closer together so you can see the real impact of the Indians on Jamaica.
Every culture transmits values through its educational process. Some of the core Indian values are respecting your elders, unity, courage, and strength of purpose.
I would highlight three things. First of all, the value of hard work. I was taught that there's no shortcut to success. There's no easy way. Nothing worthwhile in life ever comes easy. Second thing is humility. I was taught never to let success get to my head and to treat everyone with dignity and respect, no matter whether they're a prince or a pauper. And then the third thing is to always be proud of my own Indian heritage, but at the same time to embrace and learn from other cultures. So at home, we spoke Hindi, and at school I learned English and Patois. At home, I learned about the Jain religion and Hinduism, and at school it was Christianity. And that taught me that we make too much of our differences, whether it's race, religion, culture. We are much more alike than we are different, and we really need to always remember that. And those three things have served me well.
The tapestry of Jamaica is not complete without the threads of Indian influence woven into the quilt of its history. From the humble arrival of indentured workers would emerge future generations of leaders, influencers, shapers, and molders of a nation yet to be born. Those pioneering souls of courage and purpose live on today. In laying hold of Jamaica, they never let go of India. They opted to be a living bridge between divergent cultures, forging bonds that run deeper than the oceans and seas that separate both lands.
Sangat But the end of the